Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Mark Phillips. I'm your host tonight, and this show's all about wine. Fun, practical information about wine. You're going to learn about things like how to match wine and food, what the proper serving temperature is of wine, what to do with the cork at a restaurant when the waiter gives it to you. That's kind of the usual stuff, but we have some unusual stuff too, like when to microwave wine, when to freeze wine, when to put wine in Tupperware, all kinds of stuff. So some strange stuff too. It's not a snobby show about wine, believe me. So, of course, it's a wine show, so our audience has wine for them to taste, but you people at home, please get some wine. Why would you watch a wine show and not have wine? So pour yourself a glass of wine, white or red, I don't care, just have some wine, and you'll enjoy the show a lot better that way, and we'll be tasting wine the first segment, and you can participate with us if you have some wine. So, let's get going. We have a lot to cover. So, oh, look at this. See, this is what I hate, when people pour so much wine in my glass for the tasting process. Is way too much. I hate when this happens because now... Wow. I love wine. I love wine. You know what's great about wine? You can drink wine your whole life and enjoy it and not know anything about it. A lot of folks do that. They don't know much about wine, but they enjoy it. I hear it all the time when someone meets me and they say, I'm a wine guy or a wine expert, and they go, you know, I don't know much about wine, but I know what I like. Sound familiar? A lot of folks say that. So that's fine. You can get through life that way, but you'll never really understand wine if you only drink wine. Now, drinking is different than tasting. Tasting's the key thing about wine. It will open the whole world of wine up to you. When you all were out in the foyer or lobby, whatever, for the reception, having some wine and food, you were drinking wine. When I peeked out there, my observation was you're all very good at drinking wine. You know, I don't think I need to give you any help tonight on how to drink wine better. You're all very talented at that. But tasting's different than drinking. Tasting's a much slower, more deliberate process to really analyze the wine, pick up the nuances and stuff of the wine. And there's a 4-step process in tasting wine that every wine expert, every wine judge, wine writer uses when they taste wine. The first step and the last step are not that big of a deal. The first step is the appearance. It's white. You know, what are you going to say about that? No wine expert can take a sample of wine like this and look at it and say, wow, that's a great wine. So the appearance is not a big deal, nor is the last step, which is the aftertaste. Or the cool way to refer to that is a finish. How long the flavor lasts in your mouth after you swallow the wine. Generally speaking, the longer the finish, the better the wine. But there's so many exceptions to that, it's not really worth putting too much weight on that. The average finish for a wine might be 10 to 15 seconds for the average wine. Sometimes you'll see a wine writer say, this wine was so great it had a 45-second finish. Wow, you know, everyone goes nuts because, wow, it's a tremendous finish. But generally speaking, you know, a 10 or 15-second finish. The second and third step, though, those are the key ones. So we have the appearance for the first step, and now the aroma. Oh, the aroma. This is the most emotional step in tasting wine, the 4-step tasting process. You know, all the great wines I've had in my life, I don't know if I remember the taste so much, I remember the aroma. Everything happens when you smell wine. That's the main thing to do. But if you don't smell wine the right way, you'll never experience that. Now, the key thing in tasting wine, again, is to get as much information as possible out of the wine. And if you smell wine like this, with your nose over the glass, over the bowl like this, you're not going to get much aroma. There's 2 things you want to do. One, you want to ram your nose all the way in that glass. You get your nose all the way in there. That glass will be leaving indentation marks on your face because you're trying to get your nose in there. Someone with a bigger nose has a distinct advantage right here because, you know, their nose will go further in the glass. And if you have too much wine in your glass, you could drown. You know, that's if you have too much, and that's why I had to drink some of the wine out of there. Now, when I learned how to taste wine a long time ago, I was in France. And the big boys over there, they never put their nose in straight away like this when they smell wine. They put their nose in all the way, but they'd always tilt, left or right, because they think that one nostril is better than the other in smelling wine. I don't know about that, but I didn't know any better. And I was very impressionable. I was new in wine, so I thought it was kind of cool, so I thought I'd tilt too. So I always tilt left when I smell. Up to you. You know, through the show here, when you have wine, you can try going in straight, left, or right, whatever you like to do, just to see if one nostril is better than the other for you. Up to you. But the main thing is get your nose all the way in the bowl. And just as important as that is to swirl the wine. This is sloshing. That would work, but it's better to make small circles. Don't do it yet. And by doing, if a wine glass is shaped the usual way, by making small circles, the wine whips around in the bowl. It's easier on a table or even your knee if you don't have a table right in front of you. It's harder in the air, but I'm a professional. You know, I've done this so many times. And when you whip around the wine in the glass, it opens up the wine and you get so much more aroma. So let's give that a whirl. I want to see the before and after. So grab your glass. Don't swirl. Grab your glass. Oh, wait, time out, stop, down again. Oh, God, I just saw a wine tasting violation. Wine tasting violation. I won't say who it was, but the woman I won't point to it right there. How to hold the glass. When you're drinking wine, it doesn't make a difference what you do. Hold the glass by the bowl, drink out of the bottle, do shots, use a straw, you know, whatever. Because drinking wine is just about getting the wine down and you feel good, you know, that's all. But in tasting wine, you would never hold the glass by the bowl. Because one, it blocks the appearance of the wine, the first step, even though it's not that important. And your hand warms up the bowl or the wine, the glass, and that's not good. That's why the wine glass is built the way it is with the stem. Get your hand away from the bowl so you don't interfere with the wine. All right? Now, when you go to real wine tasting, probably some snobs will be there. And if you ever see someone hold the glass by the base like this, you know right away, wine geek, wine snob. Run the other way, because they'll be boring as all get out when you talk to them. So, you know, if you want to blend in at a wine tasting, just go by the stem, no bowlage. And this is a real wine tasting tonight. It's not a snobby one, but it's a real wine tasting. I don't want to see any bowlage, all right? If I see bowlage, you're out. You're out. I don't care who you are. You're out of here. No more wine for you. So you got to practice tonight. Stemage only. If you want to try the base, okay, up to you. But let's get the glass down by the stem, but don't swirl, and just smell. Just put your nose all the way in the glass without swirling. Take a big whiff. You might want to try tilting, see what that's like. And think about how much aroma you get out of the bowl when you do that. And now swirl. Whip it around the glass. Really get around the glass. Whip it around for about 5 or 10 seconds and smell it again. Put your nose in there. And you should see, if you swirl enough, you get a lot more aroma out of the bowl. And that's the whole idea. That's why we're doing this tasting process, to get as much information as possible from the wine. It's going to get worse. But that's a pretty easy one. Now, I swirl my milk, my orange juice, I swirl everything I have. I sometimes just walk like this because I'm so used to swirling wine, because it's so critical in picking up the components in the aroma of wine. All right? So we have the appearance, we have the aroma, and now taste. Finally, you know, come on, Mark, we got a drink. So, but there is an A and a B to the third step, because there are 2 components in every wine made in the world. Critical information here. 2 components in every wine made in the world: feeling and flavor. Feeling is a tactile sensation left in your mouth after you swallow the wine. There are only 2 feelings in wine: acidity and tannin. Acidity is like really strong lemonade, really tart. And you're going to feel that in the backside of your tongue after you swallow the wine. And if it's got a ton of acidity, you'll start salivating down here in your lower gum area. I put my fingers in my mouth a lot, so don't worry about that. I know where they've been. So you'll start salivating down here. That's acidity. Tannin is only in red wine, because tannin comes from the skins of the grape, and they don't use the skins of the grape to make white wine. You take a white grape and a red grape and squeeze them both. Clear juice comes out of both grapes. Red juice doesn't come out of a red grape. So when they make red wine, they take the red grapes, they smush the grapes, they leave the skins in with the clear juice. The pigment comes from the skins into the clear juice and turns it red. Red wine. But along with that pigment comes tannin. And tannin's like cottonmouth, completely dries out your mouth. It'll be going like that. In fact, a wine writer will describe a wine with a lot of tannin as being a chewy wine, because you're trying to get saliva back in your mouth. So you really need to identify what acidity and tannin is in a wine. And the way to do that is to put some wine in your mouth and use it like mouthwash. It's going to get ugly here, but it's going to work. Now, I'm going to do it for you first. I'm going to grab this mic so you can hear what's going on, because these won't really pick it up. I'm going to put some wine in my mouth and use it like mouthwash. Here I go. I'm going to do it first for you. Mouthwash all over your mouth, all over. Coat your whole inside of your mouth with wine, and then swallow, and then you'll feel the wine. All right? It's not pretty, but it's going to work. So now, before and after, take your glass of wine, stemmage. Put a little bit of wine in your mouth and just drink it. Just put it down. Don't worry about the swirling right now. That was the aroma. Who cares? And don't mouthwash, just swallow. And think about how much feeling you get out of the wine. And now put another mouthful of wine in and mouthwash like crazy, all over. You're going to make that. That's a sound I like to hear. That's it. That swishing sound. And if you really get it all over, once you swallow, that's acidity. Tart.
Yes.
Tart, isn't it? Yeah. This wine's got a lot of acidity to it. I chose it for that reason. A lot of acidity. And wait a few seconds and you may even start salivating down here. You don't need to put your fingers in your mouth. I'll just do that myself. But it happens. That's what acidity does. All right? So and we don't have any red right now, but you folks at home, if you're having a red wine, you'll probably pick up some tannin in your red wine, because tannin's in most red wines. So that's the feeling. All right? Now the flavor. And for the flavor, we're going to follow the same principle that we did when we smelled the wine. When you swirl, the air opens up the wine. So that needs to happen to taste the wine. Just putting the wine in your mouth and swallowing it, you won't get much flavor out of the wine. I'm going to put some wine in my mouth. While the wine's still there, I'm going to suck air in. That air passing over the wine is going to open it up, kind of like this did, and send the aroma up my retronasal passage to my nasal cavity, and that's where you taste wine. It all happens up here. If you have a cold, you're dinked. You can't taste wine. You won't get anything out of it. So I'm going to do it for you first, because this gets a little tricky right here, okay? Let me do it for you first. Put some wine in my mouth and suck air in. Wait, did you hear a little bit of the sound? Let me try one more time. Wait, one more time. Don't worry, one more time. Wow, that was a good one. Okay, but you hear that gurgling sound? You make that sound? You want to make that sound. Now, the problem is, if your chin's up like I was doing it, you're in trouble. Like happened to me. Because if you suck the air in, some of that wine will leak down to your throat and make you gag and maybe spew, which would be a bad thing for the people in front of you. All right? So you don't want to do it that way. The proper way is to put the wine in your mouth, put your chin down against your chest, and then suck the air in. The wine shouldn't drool out on you. That's the plan, all right? And then go. I'll do it for you the right way. And if I choke here, I'll be so embarrassed. I never have, but here we go. So here we go. Here's how it should be done. With the chin down, you won't choke because the wine's not going to get into your throat. All right? Here we go. Now, of course, at a dinner party or restaurant, I know you probably won't be doing this, but this is for wine tasting, not drinking. Drinking's for the restaurant, dinner party. Tasting's for really analyzing the wine. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But let's do it before and after. Stemmage. And now, we'll just drink the wine. Don't worry about swirling. Don't worry about the mouthwash. Just put some wine in your mouth and swallow it. And think about how much flavor you get out of the wine when you just take a swallow of wine like you're drinking wine. And now when you're ready, you may want to sit up straight. There's something new for you here. Get in position. Folks at home, same way. Don't just do the sitting back. You could be in trouble. And put a little bit of wine in your mouth, put your chin down, and suck like crazy. Go. That's right. A few coughs. We have an ambulance standing by just in case, but I think we're okay. And if you did that, really suck the air in, wow, what a rush. It's kind of a head rush for one, and you get, a lot more flavor going on. To me, the wine tastes worse sucking the air in, kind of watery and thin. You get a lot more action going on, though. So the key thing to do, you can see by doing these kind of goofy steps, you get much more information. So now you know the 4-step process. I'll review the whole 4 steps for you here in real time. And I'm going to use the same mouthful of wine for both the feeling and the flavor, the 3rd step. So if I was poured a sample of wine like this, I look at it, whatever, white. I go in for the swirlage, stemmage. I go left. Big whiff, same mouthful of wine for number 3. Swallow, feeling, flavor, finish. 4-step process, now you know. All right? Just like all the experts. Now, what's the point of that? So you know, big whip. Well, now what do you do? How do you describe wine? What do you say about the aroma and all that when you have the wine? Well, here's the key thing. There is a profile for every type of wine in the world. And this is what separates you from the experts. The experts know all the profiles. They've tasted wine enough. They know that a California Cabernet that costs $10 and is 2 years old tastes like that and has that aroma. They know what a Chianti Classico at $25 and is 5 years old tastes like that. They know every taste and aroma, generally speaking, for every type of wine. You don't. And the way you're going to learn that is to taste wine. You always want to develop the profile for every wine. This wine right here, this is an Alsatian Riesling. A Riesling is a grape from the Alsace region in France, 2004 vintage, and it's around $13 a bottle. Now you know, here's your first profile. Any wine from Alsace that's made from the Riesling grape from $12 to $15, let's say, will be not very colorful. This is kind of a clear color. The aroma, I get like pear and apple out of the aroma. Whatever you get is up to you. It's very subjective. What aromas you pick up and what flavors you pick up out of the wine. There's no absolutes. There's no objective answer for that. But whatever you get, you have to remember that for this wine. But the big thing in this wine is acidity. A lot of acidity in your mouthwash, and not very fruity. When you suck the air in, it's kind of thin and watery, not very fruity. And the finish, the average one, let's say 10 seconds, who knows, Not a big deal there. So now you know Alsatian Riesling that's 1 or 2 years old, around $12, $15 a bottle, is just like this, more times than not. Done, your first profile. 25 million more to go. You got a lot. Because if this wine cost $25, it would be different. If it was 6 years old, it would be different. So a lot of variables happen. If it was a Riesling from Germany, it would be different. This one's dry. Riesling, a lot of Rieslings that we get from Germany are sweet. So the geography, where it's grown, the price, the vintage, it all makes a difference. And all those are different types of wine. That's a lot of combinations out there. But that's the fun about it. Go through life and learn about the profiles of wine. But you have to do the tasting process. You'll never get that from drinking wine. When you drink wine and swallow it, what can you say about it? I like it. I don't like it. That's all you can say. But with tasting wine, wow, now you have all kinds of information to go with. And once you know that, the world of wine will open up so much to you. You're going to be amazed when you start tasting wine. And my charge to you is to taste every wine you have for the rest of your life. And you can read every book on the market, and it won't count anything compared to tasting every wine for the rest of your life. Every time you open a bottle of wine, pour a little bit of wine in there, do the 4-step process, and relate what you get, whatever you get out of it, to the type of wine it is. The price of the wine, the grape variety, where it comes from, all that. And remember that. Tasting wine's everything. Everything. I want to give you a system that you can take home right now, tonight. A way to choose wines in a wine shop. Before you learn all your profiles, I'll start in the next segment with this system, plus how to match wine and food, and what to do with the cork when the waiter gives it to you. That's always the tough one. What happens there? All in the next segment, so folks at home, don't go away. We'll be right back. Thanks a lot. Okay, in this segment, as I promised you, this wonderful system to understand wine right now instead of waiting for all the profiles to be developed so you can go out and buy wine right now and know what you're doing. All right? So, the system is, remember, 2 categories for wine, Old World and New World. That's easy. Old World wine is any wine made in Europe. Done. All right? Old World, a term because they've been making wine for a long time. New World wine, any wine made outside of Europe. North America, South America, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, wherever. New World. Generally speaking, Old World wine is high in acidity and not very fruity. White or red. New World wine, just the opposite. Real fruity, low in acidity. All right? Now what does that mean? In Europe, the growing season is not very long, as long as a New World growing season or a wine region. And the temperature doesn't get very warm either. So the grapes don't ripen as much in Europe as the New World. And that means the acidity is high in the grape still, and it's not very fruity. Think of like an underripe apple, a green apple. Bite into it, wow, tart. High acidity and not very fruity. As that apple ripens, that acidity goes away, and the fruitiness comes out. Same with grapes. So in Europe, the wines generally have higher acid and aren't very fruity. In the New World, where the growing season is really long and it gets really warm, much fruitier and low acid. So now, it's not just because of the climate either. Winemakers in Europe want to have a wine that way because food is king in Europe. Food is huge. And they don't want a wine to overpower the flavors of the food. So a wine that's got high acidity and low fruitiness marries very well with the food. The acidity, like the wine we just had in that first segment, that's got a lot of acid to it, by itself, it's not really that good. But put that with food, and that acidity is absorbed completely by the food. And the fruitiness that you may not pick up in that wine kind of comes through because by itself, the acidity overpowers the fruitiness. But when it's put with food, the acidity is absorbed by the food and the fruitiness comes to the front. Old World wine needs to go with food. Whenever they have a competition for wines and they put Old World wines against New World wines usually win. Because New World wines are complete. They're a meal in a glass. You know, I mean, it doesn't need anything. All the fruit's right there for you. But for Europeans, they don't want the fruit, which may be too much in a New World wine, to overpower the flavors of the dish. And because a New World grape, when it's grown, gets much riper, that means New World wines are higher in alcohol also. A Cabernet from Europe will almost always be lower in alcohol than a Cabernet from the New World. California, Australia, wherever. Higher alcohol New World, lower alcohol Europe. And alcohol is the main component that makes up the wine's body. Light body, medium body, full-bodied wines. Full-bodied wines is a wine that's high in alcohol. So you have a New World wine, really fruity, higher in alcohol. Whoa! Matching that with food could be trouble. Could be, maybe not, but it could be. And so in Europe, where the food's a king, they don't want to take that chance. So although some European winemakers could make kind of a New World wine, they want to keep it Old World style because they want the wine to complement the food. So when I'm choosing a wine to go with food, I usually choose Old World. If I'm choosing a wine for other non-food activities like, I don't know, walking the dog, doing laundry, mowing the lawn, gardening, you know, whatever, I'll choose a New World wine for those activities because there's no food around. I don't need food with the New World wine. It's complete on its own. All right? So it just depends on what you're doing. So now you know, in this Old World, New World system, what kind of wines to choose. Now, I'm not saying that New World wine doesn't go with food. Heaven forbid. In fact, here's a little thing that I go by. If a chef makes the food, I use an Old World wine. If a cook makes the food, I use a New World wine. And here's my thinking here. When a chef makes a dish, there's something to it. You know, it's a creation. It's got integrating flavors. It's something you really want to taste. And when the food's the focus, you want the wine to complement the food. The food becomes the star when a chef makes it. When a cook makes it, well, I'm thinking when a cook makes food, it's like a burger, hot dogs, pizza, macaroni and cheese, eggs and bacon, you know, whatever. Then I would choose a New World wine because that's actually a better pair for New World wine, foods like that. So you know what to match as you go along there, Old World or New World wines. So now let's just say that whether you choose an Old World wine or a New World wine with food, it's not going right. There's a bad wine and food match. It doesn't happen very often. There are very few disastrous wine and food matches. I've tried them all. I put, red wine with peanut butter and jelly. I put red wine with salad. I put white wine with steak. I try every odd combination that's not supposed to work, and there are very few disastrous matches. So if you get a wine that you like, 95% of the time, you'll be okay. Get a wine you like, get a food you like, you're okay. If you don't like Old World wine, that's okay. Get a New World wine and have it with chef food. I don't care. The main thing is get a wine that you like. And more times than not, you'll be okay. But if it's not okay, you're not dinked. Because there's one ingredient in the world that makes every wine-food combination work perfectly. Butter. Butter's the answer. Every wine goes with butter. Butter loves every wine. It does, it's true. And so if you have a food that's not, wine and food mix is not working very well, have the food, bite of the food, then have some butter, then the wine, the last taste in your mouth is butter, perfect. Well, what? That's an applause for that. I'll drink to that then, I guess. So that's the key. Have the butter there. That way, when you're in a restaurant, everyone's getting different dishes. You think, oh, what kind of wine should we get? Because everyone's ordering different things. Forget about it. Just get a wine that you all like. Maybe get several wines. And just have some butter on the table. Because it'll work fine. What about the cork? Here we are at a restaurant. You order some wine, and the waiter brings the wine to you, and he opens it up, puts the cork down there. What do you do with that cork? What does it tell you? If the cork's dry, should you send the wine back? What if the cork is soaked through with wine, completely saturated? Because if the wine's gone up the side of the cork, that means air's gotten in. And that's not good for wine. The cork is supposed to keep air away from wine. So if the cork is soaked, is that a reason to send the wine back? What if the cork has fur growing on it? Like mold, it's hair, whatever. It's just something happening in that cork. Is that a reason to send the wine back? What if the cork completely crumbles? You can't get the cork out. You got to push the cork in to get the wine out. A reason to send the wine back? No, 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 and no. Nothing about the cork tells you anything about the quality of the wine in the bottle. You would never properly send a wine back because of the condition of the cork. All right? So the next question would be, why do they give you the cork? If it means nothing, and it doesn't mean anything. 3-step process that happens in a proper restaurant wine service. 3 steps. The first step is you order a bottle of wine, and they bring the wine to you. This is a bad example because there's no label here, but they bring the wine to you and they show you the label. Is this the wine that you order? Yes. First step down. Second step, I'll tell you a story. In Washington, D.C., there's a restaurant, been around forever. Story goes, 6 businessmen walk into the restaurant years ago on expense account. They sit down at the table, look at the wine list. Company's paying for it. It must have been years ago, Company paid for it. They were the most expensive wine on the list. Why not? The waitress brings out a tray, bottle of wine already open, 6 glasses, puts the glasses down, pours the wine. They taste it. Beautiful. God, we love drinking expensive wine. And we're not paying for it. That's good. Well, 6 guys, they finished that first bottle in a heartbeat. Which just walks over with a bottle of wine? Yeah, we'd love to. Takes the empty bottle away, comes back, new bottle of wine, pours the wine. Tastes it, wonderful. The wine's great, the food's great, the atmosphere is great, perfect evening. One of the guys is smoking. Can't find an ashtray. The second bottle of wine's already empty. I'll just drop it in the bottle. Which just walks over with a bottle of wine? Sure. Takes the empty bottle away, comes back, new bottle of wine, pours the wine, cigarette butt in the bottle. What happens, some other group before this party came in and ordered that expensive bottle of wine. The restaurant saves the bottle. These folks get it. They go to the back, jug wine, fill it up, bring it out. Who would know? Who would even think that would be going on? Who could tell the difference even? It's tough to do. So that's why the second step is to open the bottle right in front of you. So you know the wine, the bottle, the wines are supposed to be there. No question. All right? So they open that. Uh-oh, everything's happening now. So they put the bottle down on the table. They unscrew the cork from the little corkscrew, the waiter's tool usually, put it in their pocket. Put the cork down the table. It means nothing. They're just getting the cork out of their hand so they can pour the wine for you. You can fondle it if you want. You can, if you're nervous on a date or something, you can play with it. You can throw it across, take it home, make a cork board, whatever you want to do. But the cork means nothing. In fact, a lot of restaurants don't even give you the cork anymore. They just put it in their pocket for a waiter. And the third step is then for you to approve the wine. And if you're the person who ordered the wine, that's you to approve the wine. And now you know how to taste wine. And this is going to be fun because you can show off to your table mates and make an impression on the waiter that you know something about wine now. And so you may want to play it up big time. Big time here. So let's just say you get some wine right here, and the waiter just poured me this sample. The waiter didn't quite pour me enough in my book, so I'm just going to have a little bit more right here. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So here's about the amount he's going to pour. That's probably a little bit too much, but that's okay. So he pours some wine for you, and now you know the 4-step process, and this is what you want to do to approve it. You really show it, really kind of work it up right here. So the first thing is while the waiter's waiting for you, and all your table mates are watching you. Maybe tilt. I don't know why I'm tilting the glass other ways, but it looks cool, Like you know what you're doing? Yeah, all right. And then you go in for the, of course, the stemmage and swirlage. And you might want to do a double tilt just to be kind of cool here. Left, right. Big whiff, think about it. You're ready for that third step right now? Okay. And if you want to send that bottle of wine back, you're less likely to get any kind of opposition to that if they think you know about wine. Now, when do you send a bottle of wine back? Here's my take on this, and this is very controversial. Not to me, it's not, but to restaurant owners and other folks. I say, if you don't like the wine, send it back. Why ruin your dinner, lunch, or breakfast with a lousy bottle of wine? You're paying a ton for wine in a restaurant anyway. Don't drink a wine that you don't like. It's silly. Now, of course, restaurateurs would say, you only send a bottle of wine back if it's flawed, if it's rotten. Well, who knows what a rotten wine is? Not many folks do. There are some wines that really smell terrible and taste terrible, but they're not rotten. That's how they're supposed to smell. And I've met so many people in the wine industry, restaurateurs, wine salespeople, that can't even tell what a rotten wine is. So it's not easy to do for a lot of people. So don't worry about if you can or not. If you don't like the wine, send it back. It's not going to hurt the restaurant. The restaurant will not lose money. If the wine isn't flawed, you just didn't like the wine, they'll sell the wine by the glass at the bar. A little special, a quick special. Here we have this, and they'll make their money back on it. Really no big deal for them. If the wine is flawed, they send it back to their distributor and get their money back. Either way, the restaurant's not going to lose money on it. So don't drink wine you don't like. In fact, my suggestion would be, if you haven't sent a bottle of wine back ever, next time you go out to eat, whether you like the wine or not, send it back. Get over the hump that first time, and you'll feel so much better about it. And then you'll be okay. Well, that's all the time we have for this segment right now. And the next segment, the big closing finale segment for the show, is where it gets kind of goofy, because the next segment we're talking about microwaving wine, freezing wine, putting the wine in Tupperware, ice cubes in wine, all kinds of stuff like that. Kind of crazy. So folks at home, don't go away. We'll be right back in a second. Thanks very much. Welcome back at home. In this segment, we are going to talk about storing wine, serving wine, and saving wine. Enjoying wine at home, really. Storing wine is the first thing. There's two issues going on right there. 98% of the wine made in the world is not meant to be aged. By far, the vast majority of the wine is not meant to be aged. So you shouldn't keep wine, because most wines won't last that long, if you want to keep wine. So that's one reason not to keep wine. Number two, older wine tastes different than younger wine. When a wine gets older, it changes dramatically. And not a lot of folks like that. I was in a wine shop years ago. A guy walks in, 40th anniversary. His face is beaming. He's so excited. He walks in and goes, I love my wife, been married for 40 years. I'm so excited. She's going to make a wonderful dinner for the two of us at home tonight. And I want to get a special wine to celebrate our 40th anniversary. The salesperson says, sure, no problem. I have this old Bordeaux. It's about 10 years old. It's ready to drink right now. It's at its prime right now. Like $200 a bottle. Expensive. Guy pulls out the cash, before credit cards almost. $200. I mean, he's so excited. Takes the wine out. He's so excited. Comes back in the next day. Livid. Veins popping out of his neck. Why did you sell me this wine? How could you do that? Ruin the whole dinner. And the salesperson was so embarrassed and concerned. He goes, I'm sorry, the wine should have been good and everything. So the guy brought the wine back. Very little of it was gone. The salesperson tastes the wine. Perfect. Perfect. Dreamy. The guy had never had old wine before. Old wine tastes different than wine that you drink. So if you don't know what old wine tastes like, don't assume that you should age your wine and like it better. A lot of folks won't. So don't save wine unless you know what you're doing. Even if you have wine that you want to keep, like someone says, keep this wine for 3 years, it'll be so much better. If you don't have the right storage conditions, you shouldn't be doing that. Proper storage conditions for wine is 55 degrees and about 70% humidity. 55 degrees, though, that's a key number right there. For every 18 degrees Fahrenheit, you go above that, 55, 18. 73, thank you. 73, room temperature, a wine will age up to 8 times faster at room temperature than at 55 degrees. So if you're keeping a wine for X number of years because some periodical or paper or wine expert says keep this wine for a while, and you have it on your living room wine rack, keep it for 3 years, for instance, after 3 years, that wine could be 24 years old. And that's way too old for most wines. It gets worse. If the wine is in a spot where light hits it from outside, or in a room where temperature variation happens, like the kitchen. Ouch. Hot, cold, and all that. A wine will age up to 20 times faster under those conditions than 55 degrees. Nothing breaks my heart more than to walk into someone's house and see wine in the kitchen. It's a disastrous place to keep wine. What could be worse than that? In the kitchen on top of the refrigerator. Disastrous. Bad, bad, bad. So if you don't have the right storage conditions, 55 degrees, at least a constant temperature. The key things in storing wine is cool, 55 degrees is ideal, constant temperature, and dark. If you don't have that, you shouldn't be saving wine. You'll be disappointed more times than not when you finally open that wine and think, what's this about? Now, if you're in a jam, put the wine in the refrigerator, white or red. It meets all three criteria. I think it's cool. Well, it's 40 degrees versus 55, but that's okay. It's fine to err on the cooler side. It's a constant temperature, and I think the light goes off when you close the door. Do we know? I'm never sure about that part right there, but I think it does. So, it's dark. And so you can always work that, in the refrigerator. So again, don't store wine. If you have wine at home that were given as a gift or an expensive wine waiting from that special occasion, tonight you go home, you had a great time, drink the wine. Tomorrow night, whenever, don't wait on that special wine. Have it sooner than later. All right? Serving wine. Next, number 2, serving wine. The proper serving temperature. Temperature is a key thing in serving wine to really enjoy it. For a white wine, I would say 50 degrees would be a good temperature to remember. 50, 5-0. It's really a continuum from high 40s to high 50s. The less expensive the wine, a wine doesn't have a lot to offer as far as complexity, high 40s. As the wine gets bigger, more expressive, up to high 50s. But 50 degrees for the average wine, like 8 to 15, 20 bucks, in that range that we probably buy wine in that range most times. So a refrigerator is 40 degrees. Way too cold for wine. Cold masks the flavor of wine. If anything, I drink cheap beer, ice cold, I'm okay with that. Because it's ice cold and the cold masks the bad flavors of cheap beer, as well as masking the flavors of cheap wine. You can always get away with serving a cheap white wine to your guests if it's served ice cold. They won't know. Put it in a carafe. They don't know what wine it is. Serve it ice cold. It will taste fine. Cold masks the good and bad flavors of wine, of any beverage. If you want to really get the flavor out of the wine, you want to pull it out of the refrigerator a little bit and let it warm up. And I'll tell you how long to do in just a second. For red wine, if you remember one temperature, I would say 65 degrees. Again, a continuum from high 50s to high 60s. Jug red, box red, Beaujolais Nouveau, like grape juice with alcohol, it's just nothing much. High 50s, as the wine gets more complex, high 60s, but not over 70. We always hear about red wine at room temperature, but that was written by the British a long time ago, when room temperature is a lot cooler than it is here. So for them, it was okay. But here, room temperature is too warm for red wine. What will change your life with red wine and everything about red wine is drinking your red wine cooler. You won't believe how much better red wine tastes if it's served in the 60s. It's a huge difference, huge. So we want to make sure you chill your red wine a little bit. So here's how to get the wines at the right temperature. Remember the 20-minute rule. If you keep your white wines in the refrigerator, pull them out 20 minutes ahead of time, 50 degrees. You keep your red wines in your living room or whatever wine rack, wherever you keep it. Put it in the refrigerator 20 minutes ahead of time, 65. All right, 20-minute rule. Drink. Every time you apply, I can drink. So wait. I like that. All right, applause more, will you please? So that's the right temperature. Now, what about in a restaurant? You order white wine, they're bringing it out in the ice bucket. Way too cold. Unless it's cheap. Leave it there. Because You won't taste the bad flavors. But if it's worth having, you want to get it out of the ice bucket. Let it warm up a little bit so you can really have the flavor of it. Now, if it's a red wine, comes in a bottle. Now, a lot of restaurants have temperature-controlled cellars or storage areas, but a lot, probably more so, still don't have that. And a wine will come out, a red wine at room temperature. Well, once you have red wine in the 60s, you'll never go back. You just can't ever have red wine at room temperature again, because you know how much better red wine tastes in the 60s. So if that red wine comes out at room temperature, you get an ice bucket, ice water, put it in there in that bottle, and chill it down a little bit. If you order a glass of red wine from the bar, you can put the glass in the ice bucket. That's silly. Ice cube. I will put an ice cube in my red wine if the red wine comes out at room temperature. I know the wine snobs will go nuts when I say that. But a red wine at the right temperature and a little watered down than a red wine that's too warm. Because when a wine gets too warm, it gets out of balance, and the alcohol will really show more, and the fruit doesn't show at all. It's just not good. Now, the red wine you're having tonight, and even at home, is probably room temperature. This is at room temperature. It's not bad. But chill that down a little bit, so much better. So much better. If I could give you all an ice cube right now, I would, but we're not equipped for that. Now, for the last one, saving wine. If you don't finish the wine, what's the best way to save it? What's wrong with that question? Drink the wine. Yeah. So, yes, drink the wine. Your number one mission when you open a bottle of wine is to finish that wine. And there's no reason why you can't. But let's say it's the fourth bottle, and then you just can't, you just try and you can't. What do you do to save the wine? Well, there are some things in the market right now. There's that little rubber thing you pump. I won't say the name. I don't buy into it, but a lot of my friends love it. And a lot of wine professionals love it too. So I'm not saying it doesn't work, absolutely, but I don't think it works. They have the inert gas you can get and spray on top of the thing. I don't think that works either to me. I haven't found anything in the market that really works. All that stuff is doing, these things, are to get the wine away from air. Air is the enemy of wine once it's opened. Breathing helps some wines initially, but then the air is the enemy, and it makes the wine go bad. So they want to get the wine away from air. Nothing works to me, except for doing it yourself. Get the wine away from air. You want to transfer the wine out of this bottle into some container where this wine fills up the container all the way, displacing the air, and seal it. And what better thing to use than my visual aids right here, water bottles, plastic water bottles. These are beautiful right here. They're all different sizes. You can see, I just bought these today, and you can fill the wine all the way up. This is 2/3 of a bottle of wine. Well, it's 2/3 of a bottle of wine, half a bottle of wine, 1 glass of wine. Finish the wine at 1 glass. You know, what's the point of this thing here? What's this? Saving 1 glass of wine. Jeez, look at this stupid thing. Half a bottle, okay, I'll go with that. Half a bottle, 2/3. And put it in here, it works, doesn't hurt the wine at all. Put it in, fill the bottle all the way up, displacing the air, screw it on, done. Whether it's a water bottle, which are so readily available, this is, I think, the container of choice for me, but Tupperware, Ziploc bags, I don't care what you use. Just get the wine away from air. That's your number one goal. Get it away from air, white or red, and then when you put it in the bottle, I like this one because it has that flip top. I can't get it open. It's like, I think it's childproof or too much. Oh, come on now, why can't I get that open? Anyway, with the flip top, you can just squirt it from there, but I like that. That's when you're walking the dog, or something like that with the New World wine. I like that. But whether it's white or red, when you're saving wine in the refrigerator, white or red, a red or any wine on the counter ages 15 times faster than in the refrigerator. Big difference. Huge. So white or red goes in the refrigerator. All right? Now, it's the next morning, or let's say next evening. Lunch, let's say lunch. It's the next day sometime, and you want to have that wine that you didn't finish the night before. Because you know it doesn't last very long, day, two, even with the air away from it, still doesn't last that long. So you go into the refrigerator, you pull it out. Now, white wine, you pour a glass, and 15, 20 minutes, you'll be okay. But even if it's cold, it's still okay. You might want to drink it a little bit cooler because the flavor won't be quite the same as it was the night before anyway. But a red wine, wow, 40 degrees, your goal is 65 degrees. You'd be waiting way too long. When I have a wine, when I want some wine at 2 in the morning, I can't wait for that long a time when I get up out of bed. So the trick with red wine is, as long as you pour about maybe, let's say, 5 ounces, let's just say, I'll do it right here. If I use this wine glass, this glass might be a little bit too tall, but let's say about this much wine, 5 or 6 ounces. I'm just guessing about that. A fair amount of wine, a decent glass of wine. Microwave, 15 seconds on high, 65 degrees. It's true. Now, depending on how much wine you pour and what the wattage your microwave is, it may change a little bit. For my microwave, and for about 6 ounces of wine, which is like a standard wine pour, 15 seconds. It doesn't hurt the wine. I was at a wine dinner not too long ago, just a couple months ago, and there's the owner and winemaker of a great Bordeaux chateau, one of the top ones. And I was talking about microwaving wine to his assistant, and she just got so offended and flustered. She ran over to the guy and said, talking about microwaving wine, he goes, I do it too. And microwaving wine doesn't hurt the wine. You do that, it'll be a perfect temperature for having red wine. Really, it's the way to go. So let's say, though, you have a party. You have way too much wine left over. You only have a day or 2 or maybe 3 to finish that leftover wine. And there's no way. Tonight, we have leftover wine. What are we going to do? So, you give it to you? All right. It's a possibility. We'll negotiate that. So you have leftover wine at a party, way too much to finish in a day or 2 or 3. The trick is, whatever container you use, whether it's a wine bottle or the water bottles, fill any container up 3/4 of the way full. 3/4 up, seal it, and freeze it. And freeze it. You need that extra space because the wine will expand because wine freezes, not like vodka. You can put it in your freezer and it's just cold but doesn't freeze. Wine freezes. And so you need that space for it to expand. And then you put it in the freezer. I've done it for 6 months. Freeze it, pull the wine out, 6 hours defrosting, taste it, perfect. Perfect. So you can always freeze wine if you have way too much left over and you can't finish in the next few days. Even better, you can put the wine into ice cube trays. The ice cube trays are perfect. You can just pull a few cubes out and use that fresh wine still, frozen fresh kind of thing, for cooking. It's a great idea. Or, the kids in my neighborhood love my red popsicles. They don't know why. Oh, well, actually, Just kidding. Just kidding. Or am I? Of course I am. I would never think about doing that. Well, now that's all the time we have for the show right now. Yeah, this goes by so quickly. We have so much more to cover about wine. But let's review a few things from the start to finish, right here, really quick. First segment, tasting wine, key thing. And your goal in life, remember, from this point on, is to taste every wine you have at some point when you have that wine and develop a profile for that wine. Huge. Next, second segment, old world, new world. Old world wine with food, new world wine with food also or by itself, whatever you choose, chef, cook, the whole bit right there. You know when to choose wine that way. Matching wine and food, you have a problem? What's the answer? Butter. That's right, butter. The cork means nothing at the restaurant when the waiter gives it to you. Don't want to keep wine for very long. There's no sense in it, especially under the right storage conditions. The temperature of wine, key thing. Cold wine, good for cheap wine. Remember that. Serve it to your guests. Put it into a carafe and serve it cold. You'll be okay. And don't save wine. Just drink the wine. Come on, that's all there is to it. We have to go home at some point, and this is the time I think. So thanks very much. Thanks.